This year, everyone has the exact same 4 rotations, which are general practice, women's health, children's health, and psychiatry. The only station I'm not sure about is one where we were told that more than 300 people failed. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Darren, and I just completed my 4th year of med school at Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. My written exam and OSCE results just came out yesterday, and I haven't checked them yet for the purpose of this video. I think it's important to be open with your exam results, regardless of whether they're good or bad, because there are times they're going to be good and there are times they're going to be bad. Just like if you compete in sport, you're going to have good races and bad races. And exams are definitely a big source of stress and emotions and anxiety, but I think the best way to navigate that is to just be open about them, not necessarily sharing them, on YouTube, but at least talking about it with your friends. And I know some people, those conversations are, oh, how'd you go on your exam? Oh, I went, all right. How about you? Oh, I did okay as well. Those very vague ones. But I think the best way of navigating all the emotions and the pressure you might put on yourself for exams is just to be open, treat them as important, but not life-ending, and then learn from them for future assessments. So with today's video, I'll be looking at my exam in 3 parts. Firstly, I'll be talking about what my exams actually involved. In the second part, we'll be talking about what my reflections are on those exams. And finally, we'll be looking at my results together. Enjoy. If you haven't checked my results reaction from last year, you can check that out because the style of the written exams is fairly similar from last year to this year. So throughout the year, I had assignments, but the main assessments were 2 written exams, or they're not quite written, you see what I mean, but 2 written exams at the end of the year and 8 OSCE stations as well. In terms of timeline, they were a day apart. So the written exam essentially had today, written exam 1, tomorrow, written exam 2, and then about a week or a week and a half later, I had 4 OSCE stations today and then 4 OSCE stations the day after. In terms of what those exams and OSCEs covered, similar to last year, we were given a list of conditions that we were meant to know to varying depths for the end of year exams and the OSCEs. Unlike last year, where everyone might get different rotations and the year is kind of a general year where you learn the basics of medicine, in this year, everyone has the exact same 4 rotations, which are general practice, women's health, children's health, and psychiatry. And so the exams are based on that. So exam 1 was consisted of general practice and psychiatry, 50 questions from each discipline. And then exam 2 was 50 questions of women's health and 50 questions of pediatrics. And then my OSCE stations, so 4 today, 4 tomorrow. So the 4 today, 1 GP, 1 women's health, 1 psychiatry, 1 pediatrics, and then repeated again tomorrow. As with logistics of the exams and the OSCEs, so the exams were 3 hours and 10 minutes each. I had to go sit them in person at the uni, but the entire exam was online and they were all multiple choice questions. I think 5 options, and each exam was 100 questions. As with the OSCE stations, I completed mine at Maroondah Hospital. So most of the cohort completed them at Monash Uni, and then some of us completed them at Maroondah Hospital. Regardless though, these stations were 12 minutes each, and you complete all 4 stations continuously, and you have 2 minutes of reading time where you're standing outside of the room reading a bit about the patient and what you will have to do in the scenario, and then you have 10 minutes of performing the tasks that were asked in this scenario. Alright, the interesting part. How did I go, or how did I think I went? Looking at the written exams, I think I performed worse than I did last year. The reasons for this, I think there are 2 main reasons that I've been thinking about since the exams. The first reason is that I didn't have something consistent I contributed to throughout the year or for a significant period of time. I feel like I switched up a bit too much between, flashcards, taking notes, or not really doing much, or just, searching things up but not really consolidating that afterwards. Whereas last year, I completed a lot of flashcards leading up on Anki, leading up to my exams, and I found that really helped, and I felt myself improving as well towards those exams. The second reason is that a lot of the conditions that are on our matrix for this year, I didn't really encounter in hospital, both because the conditions I feel like are just less common than the ones we learnt last year, and also I was at some smaller hospitals as well. Whereas last year, I found that a lot of the conditions that were on our matrix I encountered in hospital. So I did a lot of my learning from doctors and in the hospital, and I didn't really even refer to the matrix until later in the year, and just sort of would randomly look through it and realize that a lot of it I'd seen and learned before practically. Whereas that wasn't the case this year, and I think I didn't grasp that early enough and compensate for that with my studying at home. As with specific predictions, looking at exam 1, which is the general practice and psychiatry exam, I found this one better than the second exam, and I was more comfortable with more of the questions here. Partly because in general practice, the topics overlap a little bit with last year's content, but also because the teaching on general practice is really good. So most of the year level goes to Alfred Hospital on Mondays and Tuesdays for very structured classes and lectures, and I found that those really taught me a lot and covered a lot of the topics. And psychiatry was okay as well, and so my prediction here would be low 80s out of 100. Now for exam 2, I think exam 2 was a bit of a mess. I was a bit distracted during the exam as well. For some reason, I just found it hard to concentrate. I was kind of like fiddling around a bit as well. But this is the Women's Health and Children's Health or Pediatrics exam. And Women's Health is generally just pretty difficult, I think, because there are a lot of complexities, and I feel like if you don't know the actual correct way to do things, a lot of the options make sense. But then when you look at the guidelines, you realize that there is actually one correct way of doing it. So I found that a little difficult as well. And as with children's health, it's been known to have really simple and repetitive questions, but this year it was a little bit different as well, which I don't think I prepared as well for. So overall, I would say probably high 70s for this exam. As with the OSCE stations, I've seen some people share their results, and the format will be a pass or fail, an overall pass or fail for each of the 8 stations, and then a rating for particular skills within each station, such as how well did I connect with the patient, how good were the questions I asked, and how well did I explain the condition and what the next steps were. So I'll be given a rating for each of those. In terms of that overall score, I know I passed at least 6 of the 8 stations because there were resits after the resits. I think there were 2 days after the last day of OSCEs, and I predict overall that I passed all of them. I think I was pretty happy with how I handled the OSCEs. I kept my calm and my composure throughout it, and I think I was just able to focus pretty well throughout, because it is 4 continuous stations, and there can be a bit of nerves as well when you're time pressured, and I had to have a watch to set the timing and all that, and they ring the bells and you have to go to the next room, but I think I managed that pretty well. The only station I'm not sure about is one where we were told that more than 300 people failed. That one, I know I didn't say the actual condition that the patient had, so but I think I approached it with the same seriousness, the appropriate seriousness for that condition, and I wanted the patient to stay in hospital and all of that. So it just depends if they count that as a fail. But my prediction here would be that I passed all 8 stations. Results reveal. We'll look at exam 1 first, which was the general practice and psychiatry exam. And for this exam, I scored 85 out of 98, which is 86.7%. The reason it's out of 98 and not 100 is because you can submit a form, and sometimes if questions are just poor questions, they take them out. And I'll just go straight into exam 2 as well, because they're kind of similar. So for exam 2, the children's health, pediatrics, and women's health exam, I scored 83 out of 100, which is, surprise, 83%. So they're both pretty ambivalent scores for me. Like they're pretty similar to the predictions I made, and they're kind of okay-ish scores. I said this last year and I say it again, it'd be really good if we get our exams back to look at them and learn from them. But looking from exam 1, seems that diagnosing psychiatry is something I can work on, and general practice management is something I can work on. And for exam 2, some diagnosis in obstetrics and gynecology I could work on as well as management in children's health. But yeah, kind of vague. I did discuss these exams and questions with my friends after the second exam, and that helped a lot in terms of knowing specific questions which I was correct or wrong on. As with the OSCEs, I passed all 8 stations, and the one that was a bit iffy, as you can see, my diagnosis was inconclusive because I didn't say meningitis. I wasn't sure of it, but my questions and the severity with which I treated the situation matched what the examiner was looking for. The feedback comments are quite useful. I'll be going through them. They're really specific takeaways for next time. And we didn't have this in second year. After the second year OSCEs, all we received was pass, fail, and then we moved on. But the feedback is really nice. And I'll go through the specific ratings as well. I'll just have to revisit the scenario and try and remember how I approached it and what I said, and match that with the rating I was given. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. Just be open with your results. I have a lot of takeaways for next time. Though next year I am taking a research year, so I don't think there are any exams associated with that, but we'll see what happens. I'm not sure exactly what to expect next year either. We're nearing that festive season, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.